What's up, everybody? Welcome to Shred the Debt, the podcast that cuts through confusion and empowers you to take control of your financial future. Whether you're buried in student loans, battling credit card balances, or just tired of living paycheck to paycheck, well, you're in the right place. Each week, we bring you real strategies, inspiring stories, and expert insights to help you shred your debt and help build the life you deserve. Are you ready to take action? Subscribe now. Share this episode with someone who needs it and join the movement to destroy debt for good. No BS, no judgment, just real talk and real results. Let's get to work. Well, guys, I'm Mike Boone. I'm your host, and this week we're going to be talking about credit cards. Credit cards, friends or foe? Well, let's jump right into it. I'm going to tell you guys, I'm not one of these guys that are going to tell you to not have a credit card, okay? First things first, I'm real life, and I told you guys that from day one. I am real life. I'm a real person. I have the same problems, same struggles. I deal with the same things that you guys deal with on a day-to-day to month-to-month basis. And when it comes to credit cards, for a long time, I was the guy who was making the purchase on the credit card on the 0% interest, or, the credit cards are good about sending you checks in the mail. And the checks are typically for, they're good up to the balance of credit that you have. And they would send me 0% credit card checks all the time, and I would make some sort of purchase. I bought anything from, lawnmowers to motorcycles. I mean, there was one time I wrote one of these credit card checks for $15,000. Okay, and I mean, I wouldn't recommend it at the time. As a mid 20-year-old man, it was sweet. It looked very appealing. Looking at it, that hey, you have 13 months to pay this back. But, there was a fee to it. There was a percentage of the purchase that you paid right up front, and then from there on there was no interest. So there was a minimum payment, but there was no interest. And as long as you paid it off in the 13 months, there was no big deal. But that's how they get you. And if you play it that way, the credit card company has forever. The credit card company, if you think of a mousetrap, for example, you can set a mousetrap and you can put some cheese on it or whatever. In this case, we're gonna look at it as we're gonna put some debt on it. We're gonna put a little debt, put a little 0% on that mousetrap, and that mousetrap will just sit there forever until you go over there and touch it and grab it, and then you grab a hold of that 0% and bam, it bites you. It slaps your hand. It traps you. That's why you got to look at a credit card. These people have forever to play, right? They don't care. They don't want you to pay your balance off every month. They want you to fault. They won't tell you that, but that's how they make their money. I think the typical credit card rate right now is like over 20%. So that's a lot of interest to be paying on credit cards. So, I guess I'll start out with just saying that, I do have a credit card. And I have a credit card for emergency purposes. I make a few purchases a year with the credit card. I make, I pay car insurance with it, just for the fact that there's no fee to use it. And I pay my property taxes on my house with credit card. And the reason I do that, it's not that I don't have the money. It's that they charge a fee. They charge a fee for a credit card the same as they charge a fee for using your checking account. So I mean, if they're going to charge a fee, you might as well just use a credit card and get something back. So I have an Apple Card is what I have. They sold me on that thing being titanium. It's really cool. So it was a cool factor, right? It's like a lot of people get credit cards for the cool factor. They get double points, double miles, double blah, 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 right? So you have to spend like $50,000 to get your free flight to Tampa. But, a lot of people get suckered in on that. But, that's credit cards for you. So just looking at credit cards and, going back to why I have one, I was out in Washington State here a month or so ago and hiking Mount Rainier, and we were going into the national park at like 5:30 in the morning and needed some gas before we got into the park. And it was like 5:30 in the morning. Car needed some gas. So we pull in, get some gas. The gas station, of course, is closed, but the pay at the pump was available. So I go to put my debit card in, put my PIN number in or my zip code, did all that stuff, and it didn't work. Okay, so my debit card wouldn't work. So I was dead in the water there, right? So if I couldn't use my debit card, the store wasn't open. No one really carries cash, so I'm fairly certain I didn't have any cash on me. But I did have my credit card. And as soon as I put my credit card in, bam, we're pumping gas. So, you look at it that way, it saved me, So just looking at that's why I have a credit card. So it's an emergency purpose. Now, emergency purpose and emergency fund, now those aren't the same. If you are going to use a credit card for an emergency, you're not using it in lieu of the emergency fund. We definitely want you to have an emergency fund where you can take some money to pay a bill or something. But if there is an unexpected expense that you need some money, you have to pay for something right now. Well, it is an emergency. Well, I'd love for you to have the cash saved back, but if you don't, you can use a credit card. Now, my advice to you would be, if you did use that, make that a super priority to pay it back as quickly as you can to pay that balance off. Don't be carrying a balance around on your credit card. Just to give you an idea, there is over $1.2 trillion out on credit cards in the United States as we speak. Okay, so that's the number here that I have says mid-2025. The total credit card debt in America is $1.21 trillion with a T. Now, the average balance per person, the average credit card balance, this blew me away. The average credit card balance per person is $6,473 per person. So just think about everybody that you know that has a credit card. The average is over $6,000 in credit card debt. Now, there's a ton of people out here that have credit cards that have zero balance. They don't carry a balance. I'm one of those people. I don't carry a balance on a credit card, so I'm into this average, but I'm still the average person of $6,000. Like, that's crazy to me. And the average household, and I don't know where this number comes from. It's like there's the average balance per person, and there's the average balance per household, and that's kind of wild. That's a little over $9,000. But the biggest thing is the delinquency rate. That's what like baffles me. So the delinquency rate is 6.93%. Now that is the delinquency rate. That is the people that are letting credit card balances go to places like collections and whatnot, where they're actually they're being collected on this debt. 6.93% delinquency rate on credit cards in America. That's wild. That's like going to the grocery store and looking around and counting 7 people, and one person out of those 7 people that you count have credit card debt in collections. Guys, credit cards are a problem. If you can't see that, it's wild out here, but the more people that I talk to, the more I understand how credit cards get out of control. Like, for example, I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were telling me we were just talking about credit cards and how you get credit card debt. And this person was telling me like, oh, I have $2,000 in credit card debt because my child needed sports equipment for travel ball. Okay, so they were telling me, well, used to back in the past we could make payments on this travel ball. And I feel for you parents that have children in extracurricular stuff like gymnastics and football and baseball, and especially baseball, because those people travel everywhere in the summertime. Like they go to Florida, they go out of state, they do all these tournaments, and all this stuff is very expensive. And these people, of course, want their money right now. Well, everyone that is good at sports may not be, rich, right? And it's not a problem for some families, but it is a problem for a lot of families. A lot of families that make good money and do well for themselves, this extra expense comes at an expense. And unfortunately, a lot of people put that on their credit card, and then they're like, well, we'll pay this every month until we get it paid off. Unfortunately, if you let it roll past the first grace period of the credit card, now you're paying 22% interest every month on this balance. So this $2,000 could have ended up costing you $300 or $400 by the time that you get it paid off. And that's ridiculous to me. But that's that seems like that's the world we live in. Back in the late 90s when I was in high school, I think that the field trips and the things that we were doing then, it was the school. It seemed like every time you turn around, the school needed $25 for something. Oh, we need $20 for this. Oh, we need $50 for this. Oh, we're going on this trip. You need $30. And they did that every time we turn around. And we're like, well, do taxes or anything pay for this kind of stuff? And at the end of the day, no, it doesn't. And it's wild to me that we live in a society like that where there's so much extra that we have to pay just to get our children involved and to do things that we think would be covered in some other way. But looking at credit cards, if we're looking at the pros of credit cards, we talked about emergency. If you want to use it for an emergency, like I did, needed gas, it was a no-brainer to use my credit card. Now, a lot of people, when I was younger, my parents were like, "Well, you got to have some debt so you can build credit." I understand it, but man, that's at your expense, right? You're building credit with the credit card. So you're making purchases on this credit card, and then in theory what happens is your credit limit, as you use this credit card, your credit limit is extended. You get a higher and higher credit limit, and then once you do, you have a higher amount of available credit, which in return gives you a higher credit score. Now, I mean, it makes sense. I understand. I carried a credit card. I carried 2 or 3 credit cards at one time. And I think when I finally decided to just have the one, I gave up one that I had for like 15 years. And when I gave it up, I think that credit card had like a $35,000 limit or something like that. So when I did away with that credit card, it did 2 things negatively. It took away $30-some thousand worth of available credit that I had, which lowered my score, but it also took away my longest account that I had. So the longer that you have a credit account, that affects your credit score as well. And the credit score, I mean, I don't know. I have mixed feelings over it. I monitor mine as part of my budget program that I have, and I think my credit score is like a 820 or something like that. Which, I mean, it's irrelevant. I don't plan on borrowing money ever again. I do have a mortgage, and we've talked about that in previous shows. I do have a mortgage, but outside of that, I don't plan on. Once the mortgage is paid for, I never plan on borrowing money again. I don't. It makes me sick to my stomach to think of borrowing and then making payment after payment after payment. It's too much. I don't need a new car. We'll get into these things like throwaway, what I consider a throwaway car. I can tell you guys a ton of stuff. We can do a whole show on buying used cars, driving them 100,000 miles and then turning around and selling them 2 or 3 years later for the exact same money that you bought it for. We can do a whole show on that. I have a ton of knowledge about that. I've done it time and time and time again, and you just can't, you can't be out here keeping up with the Joneses with your $80,000 Tahoe. You just can't do that. So furthermore, back on topic here with the credit card, a lot of people, they like their rewards and their points. And there will be people that will have a credit card for a certain store. And I think that's dumb, right? You might disagree with me, and it's fine. But people that have credit cards, like let's just say big box stores, let's say Kohl's or Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that, there's a lot of people that have credit cards for specific stores. And when you have a credit card for a specific store, you can only use that credit card at that specific store. Okay, but you're going to get, you use your Lowe's card, you're going to get 10% off. 10%. $10 off of $100. $100 off of $1,000. So if you buy a $4,000 refrigerator, you're going to get $400 off. Okay, great. It's going to pay the sales tax on the appliance, right? Well, here's a news flash for you. If your refrigerator goes out, I guarantee you there's someone on Marketplace or some sort of online ad or something where you can buy a good refrigerator that somebody just didn't want to pay Lowe's to haul it off, and you can get it for $50 or $100 or something like that, and it's gonna cool your food. It's gonna freeze your food just the way that this $4,000 one is. People are out here just spending money they don't have for something they don't need for no reason other than they get some points or they got 10% off. So just be smart about it. I'm not a fan. If you can't tell, I'm not a fan of store credit cards. I think they're stupid. If I'm getting 1 or 2% cash back on my credit card, okay. If I needed a refrigerator, do I need a $4,000 one? I don't know. I mean, it's easier to spend money when you don't have it, right? When you're just swiping a card, I got 10% off. I got 0%. That's the big one. I got 0%. Well, if you didn't have 0% and you were going in there with cash, would you buy the same $4,000 refrigerator? I would say the majority of people would not. They would have bought a cheaper refrigerator if they were paying cash for it. But when they say, well, I have a year to pay it off, they start making all these excuses of why they need something different, mainly because of the way that they have to pay for it. So, store credit cards, don't do it. If you're going to have a credit card, have one and have something that gives you some sort of reward, I guess. I'm not saying do that, but I mean, if you are going to have one, you might as well have one that's going to help benefit you in some way. So that takes me to, more pros of a credit card. Many credit cards offer cash back or travel points, airline miles, all that stuff. There's a lot of perks, I guess, to certain ones. But then when you get into certain ones, there's also fees that come along with them. Most of these credit cards that offer all this over the top extra stuff, there's typically like an annual fee or something. So just keep that in mind. But now with fraud protection and stuff like that, credit cards pretty legit there. If your card is compromised with a credit card, they'll send you a new one overnight almost. They can just change your number. They can if you need to dispute a charge, it's fairly easy to dispute a charge. Debit card, not so much. I've had my debit card compromised a couple of times in my life, and when that thing doesn't work, it takes you maybe a week to get another one, and you're locked down. You have to go to the bank to get some money. And disputing a charge, that's not any fun. It's about like dealing with the post office and trying to get something insured to get paid back for something that the post office broke or something like that. So that part of it, the fraud protection, I'd say that's a pro. Purchase protection, if you buy something and you need to return it and you're getting some flack over the company you purchased it from, credit card's like your attorney to a certain extent. Instead of you having to prove that they did wrong, like you would with your debit card, the credit card company's there for you, and then they're going to ask you questions, but they're asking the merchant more questions on, why did you do this and why did you do that, and not asking you questions like, well, did you offer, did you request a refund? Did you get approval? Now blah, 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 right? So keep that in mind. You have purchase protection, fraud protection, rewards, credit building. I mean, if nothing else, it's convenient, right? It's just scan, swipe. You can put your credit card on your phone, in your wallet. Just hold your phone up and bam, your credit card. And I mean they do a good job too of tracking expenses if you do. But at the end of the day, a credit card is a lot similar to let's say a firearm, right? It's a tool. It's a good tool if it's used correctly. If it's not, it could be very dangerous. Credit cards are the same way. You can look at if you use a credit card the way that it was intended and designed, it works, and it'll serve you well. But if you use it in a way that is reckless, if you have malicious intent with your credit card, it's the same. It can cause you a lot of harm, maybe not physical harm like a firearm, but it can cause you financial harm that you can't get away from, that you can't escape. So keep that in mind with the credit card. So now we've talked about all the cool, great things about a credit card. Let me tell you why they suck, okay? Let's get right into why they are bad, okay? And this is what you have to keep in mind. You have to think about this kind of stuff when you're getting one. It's a huge responsibility. Having a credit card is like having a puppy. You have to really watch what you're doing with it. You can't just let the thing loose. The thing's gonna eat your kitchen table. Credit card's the same way. You start being reckless with it, you're going to get a bill in the mail, and it's like, whoa, my bill's $4,000. What did I buy? Well, I bought a bunch of socks and clothes and whatnots, and now I owe $4,000, and I don't even make $4,000. It's very easy to do if you don't keep control of it. So keep that in mind. So high interest rates, we talked about that. The APRs can go up to, I think the federal limit is somewhere around 22% or something like that. So that's going to be your balance, and I think it's a daily balance. Compound interest to the negative. It's bad. Don't pay the minimum payment. I think they passed law here several years ago. I think it's been a long time since I've actually seen a credit card bill, a paper one, come in the mail. But they used to. Well, I guess they still do if you have one. But it tells you how long that it would take to pay the balance off if you just make the minimum payment. And it's wild to see how long that it takes to pay something off. Say if you have like $2,000 or $3,000 on your credit card and the minimum payment's like $125, it takes you forever. And you're just paying interest. And what's wild to me is it makes you question, is money real? I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day. It's is money real? It's real that they're charging it to you, but what is the what's the collateral on your credit card for the company, right? You bought all this stuff on Amazon or whatever, and you owe the money, but what are they doing? It's just electronic. It's almost like it's not real, but you're paying interest, and that interest is real. And what are they doing with that money? They're out here making out like bandits, right? And I don't know. It's weird. Are there so many people that are paying their credit card bills? What these credit card companies, if you look at their stock, it's crazy expensive. So they're making money. So they're investing. I guess they're investing your credit card bill, investing your mortgage interest, whatever these credit banks do. They're making money. Don't think they're not. So. Another thing is overspending. Overspending. It's real easy to spend money you don't have when it's just pulling your phone out or pulling your card out and just swiping, right? Just get on Amazon. Oh, and I'd like to have this new robotic vacuum cleaner. Boop, $350. It's real easy, especially if you don't have a budget. If you're not using a budget, you're just using a credit card, it's very easy to overspend. And I can tell you that I've done this. I used to say, well, I'm just going to use my credit card for everything, and then as soon as I use my credit card, I'll just pay it off with my checking account, and then I'll get the cash back. Well, I did that, and it worked okay, but what I did find is 3 or 4 days before I would get paid, I was finding that I was running out of money. I was living on credit card, and even though that I was paying off the balance about every couple of days, I would get to the end of before my payday, I was $200 or $300 on my credit card that I didn't have in actual cash to pay it off. I was having to wait until I got paid, and that made me think about the budget, and it made me think of what am I spending money on, and what am I doing to keep a better watch on my money. And I'm like, well, if I use my debit card, that money's gone as soon as I use it. And that's what I started doing. And it started making me more conscious of my spending. And I was able to kind of veer away from that credit card spending and veer away from that 1% cash back. Okay. So if I'm spending $3,000 a month, I'm getting $30. It's not worth the risk, because if say something happened and you weren't able to pay that $3,000 off, that $30 is going to be an interest in a very, very short time, and then it's just going to keep building. So try not to get yourself in that situation. And that brings us to the next thing here with the overspending. If you overspending, you have impulse buying, and then if you don't pay it off every month, you're going to get fees, right? You're going to get interest, and then like I was telling you, with some of those awesome plans where you get into the Delta Lounge or the concierge whatever with the Hilton, you get the VIP rooms and all that stuff. Those sometimes come with an annual fee, and they could be anything. They could be $50 a year. They could be $300 a year. I mean, there's a ton of things that they could charge you for. So just be conscious of that. It's it's a wild ride out there. But keep in mind that credit cards can be okay. A credit card, let's just say a credit card with no S on the end, could be good for an emergency use. I think the problem with the majority of America is they're using their credit card to offset their income, and they're not making enough income, and they're having to use their credit card to survive, and that is a problem in America. Like I told you all just a little bit ago about the travel ball and the extracurricular activity that parents are faced with paying for their children to be able to do activities that they can't afford. And it's not that they can't afford. Well, it is that they can't afford. They don't have the money saved, but then there's always a why. And one of the things with my day job is I'm always working with problem solving. So if you don't have the money, if we're looking at this, if we don't have the money to pay for the extracurricular for our kids, why? That's a question. Why? What are we spending our money on that we don't have money for our children, for these things? And we're not bad parents by not having the money, but maybe we're bad budgeters. Maybe we're bad managers of our finance. You ever thought about that? Maybe we're taking, maybe we have an $800 a month car payment. Why? Why do we have that? There's certain things in it. And until you can break down your money and your spending habits to know where your money's going every month, it's hard for you to really make a decision and change the way that you're spending money. So keep that in mind with the credit card. I'm not going to tell you that credit cards are bad. That's not the takeaway of this show. The takeaway of today's show is to tell you about credit cards, and you can make up your own mind if a credit card is your friend or a credit card is your foe. It's kind of like if your friend if you have a friend and they're a really cool person to hang around, but every time that you're around them, they need something. They need some money. They need this. They're always trying to borrow money from you, right? No, I'll pay you back next week, and then they never do, right? That's kind of how a credit card is. It's cool. It's fun. It's fun to use. It's easy. It's convenient. But if you're not having the funds to pay it off every month, it can get not fun really, really fast. So keep that in mind. That's the takeaway of today's show. You have to make up your own mind. Credit card, friend or foe. I hope I've broken it down. I hope I've given you enough information here to be knowledgeable about credit cards. Do you really need 3 credit cards? I'm going to say no. Because if you have 3 and you have a balance on all of them, it just makes it that much harder to pay off. If you have 1, you're carrying a balance, okay. At least you have one point of attack, and you can break down your budget, you can break down your spending, and you can see exactly what you're spending money on. And then just be smart about the money that you are spending. But it helps to have a budget. I'm a true believer of that now. I wasn't for a long time, and it was because I didn't understand. And just taking the time, understand, break down the problem, break down your spending, know where your money's going, and then make the behavioral changes, make the spending habit changes, and then shred the debt, man. It's easy to do. If you need some help, I'm here. shredthedebt@gmail.com. I want to help you guys. That's what it's all about. I want to help you guys. If you need help with a budget, you need help looking at some stuff, if you have some questions, send me an email. We'll use it on the air. I'll read them out, give you my thoughts, but I love doing this show. I love helping people, and I love being able to problem solve and help others see the light and get that aha moment that makes a beneficial change in their spending behavior. So with that, thank you guys for tuning in to Shred the Debt, where financial freedom isn't a dream, it's a plan. If today's episode has helped you take one step closer to crushing your debt, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, rate it, leave a review. If you want more tools, tips, and motivation, follow us on socials and join the Shred the Debt community. Until next time, keep pushing, keep planning, and keep shredding. You've got this. Thanks, guys.